Welcome everybody back into Nerd Sesh. As always, I'm Carson Breber and alongside me is Logan Camden, and it is officially the NBA offseason, which means you already know how it's going to be. It's going to be wet and wild over here at Nerd Sesh for the next couple months. So fasten your seatbelts, put on your protective goggles, because we're going to have a good old-fashioned fun time. But first, we got to stay in business mode because in 2 days, Logan, we have the NBA draft. We crowned a new champion in a Game 7 last night, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and now already we have to look to the future for all 30 NBA franchises, the well of hope that is the NBA draft. So today, we're going to do just that. We are going to give you guys a lottery mock draft, just our top 14 picks, how we would handle them for each team if we were acting as GM. I never like to do the whole speculative, oh, this is what I think they're gonna do, because we're not insiders. We're not in these front offices. Like, we don't know exactly what these teams are thinking. I think it's more interesting to just say, who do we think are the best guys on the board for those specific situations? So we will alternate picks. Logan will be GM for half the teams. I will be GM for the other half. And we'll start with you, Logan, with a no-brainer. At number 1 for the Dallas Mavericks, who would you like to take?
The Dallas Mavericks are going to select Cooper Flagg with the number 1 overall pick. Yeah, shocking. And I want to preface this by saying, too, I won't necessarily be taking the top guy on my big board for each of these teams. I do think positional and situational fits are very, very important when it comes to the draft. And so I necessarily won't always be going with best player available. That being said, Cooper Flagg is a historic prospect. He is one of the best of this century. He is the no-brainer number 1 guy here, and the Dallas Mavericks and Nico Harrison should be thanking their lucky stars that the ping pong balls fell the way that they did, and they lucked in to this draft pick after trading away Luka Doncic, after having a disastrous end to their season, and they luck out. And I love Cooper Flagg's upside long-term, but I also like his immediate fit with Kyrie and Anthony Davis and this Dallas Mavericks team. He is a really good connective forward immediately for this team. He's an all-time defensive prospect. I think him and Anthony Davis are going to be one of the best defensive front courts in basketball immediately. Depending if they slot him in at the 5, I guess they could play Flagg at the 3, AD at the 4, and then a big man. Either way, the defensive front court is going to be nasty. There's a ton of athleticism. There's a ton of rim protection. And Flagg is a really versatile defender. He's an elite rim protector, but he can also switch out and defend on the perimeter. And so I really like his versatility and his malleability. He's going to be a stud, and if everybody stays healthy, the Mavericks should have one of the best defenses, I think, in basketball next season. But offensively, I like Flagg's game too. Immediately, I think he can fit in alongside a primary ball handler like a Kyrie and do a ton of stuff off ball, if that's as a screener and he's picking and popping or he's picking and rolling, or if that's just relocating off ball, getting to open space. The guy, everybody's going to talk about his skill, about his athleticism, all of that, and it's very important. He's very talented in those regards, but he has great basketball instincts. He is brilliant. He's a very high IQ guy, and that's why I'm really confident in him having an immediate winning impact along with all of his physical and athletic traits. I'm really excited to see him make his debut, and then, you know, that's the immediate, but long-term, I think he's got a ton of upside potentially as a offensive number 2 or number 1. I couldn't rule that out. The guy's uber talented. He is a special, special prospect, and he's going to be a Dallas Maverick.
Yeah, this is the no-brainer of all no-brainers. Flagg is a level up from every other prospect in this class. He is maybe a top 5 prospect we've seen this century. He's certainly straddling that line. He's the best defensive prospect in this class. I would argue he's the best offensive prospect in this class. He's at least the guy who I think has the highest floor, who is the most portable offensively. So he's clearly the best on the board. I think it's going to be extremely interesting to see him in a win-now role, because I think he is uniquely well-equipped to immediately slide in and be such a productive, impactful, like top 50 kind of guy right away for a team that wants to go deep in the playoffs. He can fill multiple roles on both sides of the ball. This is a Dallas team that was going to be a dominant defense this past year if they had stayed healthy, with Anthony Davis playing alongside another high-level rim protector, with the totality of the defensive talent that they have on the wings. And Flagg is just another incredible defensive talent to add into the mix here. I do think their best look is going to be moving AD back to the 5, I think that's where he's at his best, really on both sides of the ball, especially offensively. And we know that he can anchor elite defenses at the 5. And then you have Flagg at the 4, and they probably end up moving Gafford, I would expect, because I don't think they need to have two centers as good as Gafford and Lively if neither one is starting. But they can also definitely play in stretches a front court with Flagg and AD and a center if it's Gafford or Lively. You just have so many options with this guy, but I do think the totality of their wing depth is good enough where it's like, you don't need to force the center alongside AD and Flagg thing, because you have Max Christie, you have Najee Marshall, you have obviously Clay, you have PJ Washington, just a lot of really good basketball players. So I think he is immediately going to be a huge contributor to an elite defense. And then offensively, you said it. I mean, he can do the off-ball stuff cutting. He's great running the floor in transition. He's a really good connective passer. I think there's screening potential for him. He's going to be really good in transition. The interesting challenge for him on that side of the ball is going to be Kyrie's going to miss a good portion of the season. And so you look at this roster and you try to find that guy who is going to have to step up as more of a primary ball handler, running pick and roll with volume, creating more for teammates. And I think a lot of that responsibility does fall on Cooper Flagg. So I don't expect him to be super polished in that role immediately as a rookie. But I think it's interesting that he's going to get some reps there. I think that's probably a good thing for his long-term development. And then when Kyrie is back into the mix, Flagg is obviously going to have some of those secondary ball handling responsibilities and then do all of the good all-around complementary stuff that he's so great at on both sides of the ball. But regardless, this is the obvious pick, and it's a home run for the Mavs.
I do think those reps and experience could be crucial for him, man. Like, just... it's valuable to get those looks at the NBA level. I mean, who's their backup PGs? Is it still Dinwiddie? Who are they trotting out there?
Yeah, Dinwiddie, I think that they have to re-sign. Jaden Hardy they have under control, so maybe it ends up being him.
And we're not into free agency, too. I mean, they could always sign somebody as well, but I definitely think Coop is the guy. And long-term, I think that's going to be a bigger part of his game as he grows. But they got so lucky, man. Shout out Nico Harrison, I guess, man.
Nope, no shout out, just absolute dumb luck. But they did get really, really lucky. I do think that the offense is going to be kind of a struggle for the Mavs before they get Kyrie back. And then even when they do get him back, I don't think that they're an upper echelon offense. I think with AD at the 5 and with Flagg at the 4, that's going to be their best look offensively. But still, they don't have that sort of like seamless, really high-end playmaker who can just grease the wheels of the whole offense. But they'll definitely be better. Flagg definitely makes them better.
What's the defensive ceiling next year?
Better than any defense in basketball other than the Thunder. I think they can be that
really?
great. Yeah, dude, I think that they're right there with the Magic and the Rockets and the Celtics. Well, no, they won't be there anymore because Jason Tatum tore his Achilles, unfortunately. Yeah, I look at them absolutely as a team that will be a top 5 defense, could be the second best defense in basketball. I think it's ridiculous, dude. Like, Flagg is almost a one-of-a-kind rim-protecting wing forward. I think he can be so impactful there while he's a really good perimeter defender. But to have that with AD and then to also have, at least on their roster right now, 2 legitimately very good defensive centers with these wings who can guard, the amount of length and size and athleticism and defensive talent they have, it's crazy, dude. I think they can be suffocating on that side of the ball, and they're probably more average to maybe a little bit above average at full strength offensively. But that sort of defensive punch, that can win you tough playoff games. That can probably win you a series, and I do think they'll be one of the better teams in the West, and Flagg opens up a ceiling for them that wasn't there when they made the Luka trade. Like, he really is a lifesaver for them and does give them a puncher's chance, at least, at being an actual contender. The second pick belongs to the San Antonio Spurs, and I think that this is also a no-brainer. I'm taking Dylan Harper if I'm them, and I'm not thinking twice about it. I'm not trading the pick. I'm not trading down. I'm not doing anything. I'm just taking the guy who is now by far the best talent available on the board. I understand that the Spurs are in a weird situation now where they just traded for De'Aaron Fox, who is this downhill point guard. And they drafted Stephon Castle last year, who is this downhill point guard. And now they're going to take Dylan Harper, who is another downhill point guard. I just think the talent is too good to deny or to pass up on. And I would absolutely make him my top priority over Castle and De'Aaron Fox. I think that he is going to be the best player out of this bunch. There's two guys who I would say I expect to be all-stars. There will end up being more than that from this class because that's just how it goes. But the two guys for whom that is my expectation, it's Flagg, who all-NBA is my expectation, top 10 is my expectation, and then Dylan Harper. I think he's that great offensively. So productive, 19, 5, and 4 on 59% true shooting. Really impressive blend of ball handling, of athleticism, of craft as a driver, of footwork, of touch. And he's just an exceptionally difficult guard to keep out of the paint and to keep from finishing at the rim. 6 free throw attempts per game. Lives downhill and at the free throw line. Shoots 68% at the rim. Like just a ridiculously gifted finishing guard who is one of the best passers in this class, who is one of the best scorers in this class, who really doesn't turn the ball over much. So there are a couple swing factors for him. How good is the three-point shot? We've seen some production from him off the catch, shooting 37% from deep. We've seen some flashes in terms of attacking closeouts, cutting. So there are signs of off-ball potential. We need to see more consistency there. The pull-up shot, he was 29% on pull-up threes, which isn't too bad, but it's also not a good number. But you see some of the shades of touch. I think he's going to end up being a pretty average shooter. And then you pair that with this dominant downhill scoring ability, collapse defenses, play make, and the talent is just too good to pass up on. That's what it comes down to. So long term, again, I prioritize him over Fox. When I'm looking to the Wemby era, this is the guard who I am most focused on pairing him with. And I'm not passing up on that for any sort of short-term thing or roster fit concerns. Like, will he and Fox be a super good fit together? I don't know. I'm not really optimistic about that. But if there's a guy who I'm sending on his way because of fit concerns, it's going to be De'Aaron Fox, not Dylan Harper.
I completely agree. I think Fox is the odd man out. I think Fox should have been the odd man out for Sacramento when they had Tyrese Halliburton. And I think, ironically, it's a similar situation here in San Antonio. I love Dylan Harper. I completely agree with a lot of the stuff you said. I expect him to be an all-star. He's a stud. The thing I wrote down at the top of my notes about Dylan Harper is give him a screen and let him go to work. Like, he is so good out of the pick and roll. He's so good at splitting defenders and just getting into the teeth of the defense. Like, he is special. And I'm not super optimistic like you that it's going to be a seamless fit with him, but he does have some connective traits that I think could make him viable as a two-guard. Closeout attacking, catching and shooting, and cutting. He is capable there. Obviously, he's a primary ball handler. He is the initiator. That's his best fit. But I think it could work. And then defensively, I love Dylan Harper too, man. He's a really damn good defender. So I'm all in on Dylan Harper. I think the Spurs lucked out by getting him. And like you said, I think he is the perfect guy to put alongside a guy like Victor Wembanyama for the future. So I agree with you, man. Some people may be interested in accelerating this timeline. They may look at this and go, you already got your guard. Let's go get another guy at a different position that maybe works better. I think that would be severely underestimating and underrating the talent that is Dylan Harper.
Yeah, I think that you have to understand that as a talent, like, he is a better version of the archetype that you would hope that Fox could be. Like, I don't think that he is an elite passing prospect. Like, he's not the guy who would be best in the class, but he is definitely, again, one of the better guys in the class, and he's a really good interior passer. And the thing is, he just gets to the damn rim so much, and he commands so much defensive attention.
That's the easiest thing to add on when you can get downhill and score the basketball. You know, if you can't score the ball, who's going to respect you as a playmaker? Nobody. You're going to get defended in single coverage, and you're not going to create any advantages.
And he can already make some of the advanced reads. You see the occasional skip passes from him. You see some ability to manipulate defenses. But if you're just going to get to the rim over and over again and you can make those lay-down passes and those kickouts, which Dylan Harper can do, that's hugely impactful. And I think that he is going to be a better passer than Fox. I also think that we have this idea of De'Aaron Fox as this great downhill guard because the guy is so ridiculously fast. But we've talked about this a fair bit. His rim rate has just dropped and dropped and dropped over the last few years. So he is not applying the sort of pressure, getting to the rim, getting to the line, with the volume that Dylan Harper is and is going to. Also, like, I think it's just a great thing to have a great downhill guard and ideally a very good passer alongside a big who does want to space the floor some more in Victor Wembanyama. I mean, the pick and pop complement there, you can see with the downhill pressure of Harper, demanding that extra attention, opening things up for Wemby as a shooter. And defensively, I'm not super optimistic about Harper, but I just think he's going to be fine. Like, he meets the mark of having the physical tools. 6'4.5", great size for a point guard with a 6'10" wingspan. So, yeah, he's going to be inconsistent there because he's going to carry this offensive load. He's never going to be a guy who's super focused on the defensive end probably, but he's got the size, he's got the length to keep himself from being attacked, and that means that he can fit in seamlessly to a defense, and that's probably going to be the side of the ball that the Spurs hang their hat on mostly in the Victor Wembanyama era. So, I think that this is another no-brainer. I'd take Dylan Harper at 2.
Just to add a little bit to that stat you just shouted out, since De'Aaron Fox's peak in 2019-20 when he was getting downhill to the rim the most, he's basically halved his attempts over the last 5 years at the rim.
Yep. Trend year over year over year with him. Get a new, even more explosive dynamic downhill guard who you know is going to apply that different level of rim pressure. Let's move on to the third pick, Logan, which belongs to the Sixers. Still just got to kind of bask for a moment in how crazy this top three is, that it's the Mavs, the Spurs, and the Sixers, teams that want to be in the playoffs next year for sure, have the opportunities to land the top picks in the draft. Who do you like for Philly at 3?
For the first time in Nerd Sesh mock draft history, I'm going to phone a friend here. Carson, I'm conflicted.
Okay.
I don't know what to do about Ace Bailey. I'm
taking VJ Edgecombe here.
That's who I wrote down. I just don't. He can't get his head out his ass. I mean, like, when I think about it on paper, just the skill set that Ace Bailey has, I think it's a really good fit positionally and skill-wise, but I don't like the guy's attitude, and I don't think he fully understands what his winning impact is going to look like at the next level. One, just character issues. I think it's really concerning that this guy doesn't want to go through the traditional draft process and work out for teams or interview. It's like you just look unprofessional. But bigger than that, it seems like Ace Bailey thinks he is a star. And not only that he thinks he's going to be a star, that's not the thing that I have an issue with. It's specifically the play style that he wants to play as a star. I think this guy thinks he's like a primary ball handler, an initiator, and that's just not his ideal role, in my opinion, at the next level. This guy has all the skills in the world to succeed. The freakish athleticism, where I could see this guy being an elite pick and popper and pick and roller, and a great defender. Like, when you think about, again, when I say that, that's if he tapped into the mental side of the game. And that's the biggest thing. So I have him falling down my board. I don't know where he's going to go in this mock because it seems like Carson and I aren't the only ones that are not in on Ace Bailey. And so I am going to take VJ Edgecombe here. And I do like his fit as well with Philadelphia. I think I would start him next to Maxey. Those would probably be my two guards starting. I guess you could start McCain, but I think Edgecombe fits in nicely as that two guard. This guy is a really good defensive prospect and positional rebounder for a 2. He is a supreme athlete, and that's something that I think Philadelphia needs. You've got Embiid, you've got Maxey, you've got Paul George. Like, you're getting your scoring punch from there. Let's get a guy that can come in here, defend and rebound at a high level, and be a really good closeout attacker and transition scorer. Like, he just seems like a really good connective fit for this team. In long term, I still think he's the best prospect on the board at pick 3 because I think he's got a ton of upside. One, even more so as a shooter. I think he's going to be a good catch and shooter, and so I think he's going to be viable in the half court. But if he continues to progress with his handle, you're looking at a potential all-star guard. I know you threw out the comp when we were doing our preview, but I do think the Victor Oladipo comp is a good one for Edgecombe with his athleticism. And again, that's him fully figuring it out, and Oladipo had to fully figure it out. And don't just look at his numbers. Like, if you remember, when Oladipo was healthy and hit his peak, that was a special, special basketball player. I really like VJ as a connective, winning impact guy immediately, but I also really like his upside for the future, too. So I think it's a good pick here for Philly.
Yeah, I think that you basically said it all. I think that Edgecombe is the best prospect on the board. I think that he's the best fit for Philly, and I am just way more confident in him than I am on Ace Bailey, who I think there is so much more downside with because there are so many key swing factors for Ace Bailey. So many of them have to do with his attitude and his willingness to play a role and scale down and do the winning things and not try to be that tough bucket every possession. And I'm really concerned about his willingness to do those things with the way that he has answered some questions, with the way that he's approached the draft process so far, basically just thinking he's hot shit, that he doesn't have to do workouts with certain teams. Like, that doesn't bode well. So I was already higher on Edgecombe, and that basically makes this another no-brainer. But I think that he would be so good in Philly, VJ Edgecombe. I mean, you have that elite athleticism. You have that ability to pressure the rim, where I'd like to see him a bit more efficient as a finisher, but he can get there. I think he'll be an average shooter, probably from beyond the arc as a rookie. I think he can be an above average shooter, but probably like a solid 35% from deep kind of guy who absolutely can attack closeouts really effectively, as you mentioned. And then there's just a lot of little stuff, like his connective passing, him being an elite offensive rebounding guard, grabbing 2 offensive rebounds a game, having the ability as a defensive player to guard relatively well at the point of attack, but then also make some plays as a backline defender with some impressive rim protection for a guard, a guy who can force steals at a high rate. Like, when I just think about what Philly should want, it's a really good all-around wing who can help them win right now. That's exactly what VJ Edgecombe is. And yeah, he does have long-term upside that he can tap into, but this is another clear one for me, and it's so hard to talk about the Sixers because there's so many ifs. Like, personally, I kind of think that Paul George is just cooked. Like, yeah, he was playing through injury this year, but he really, really struggled end to end. So we'll see if there is a miraculous comeback there for him with the fully healthy offseason. I'd like to think so, because I love PG, and I thought he was so good just last year with the Clippers, but then this year was such a struggle and such a dramatic fall-off. And then obviously Joel Embiid, like, this is a guy who was considering medical retirement this very offseason. So it's fun to think about what Philly could be. Ultimately, I'm pretty pessimistic because this past year was like major alarms going off for them in basically every way possible. But maybe they do have a miracle, and maybe PG does bounce back a bit, and maybe Embiid is fully healthy for 60-plus games and gets back to his really high level. And if that were to happen, then Edgecombe would be the perfect guy to help make them potentially a contender. Again, I don't land on that side of the spectrum. I don't think that magical outcome is going to happen for them. But regardless, Edgecombe is the guy who I'd want.
I mean, I was just going to say, I think they're kind of stuck regardless with the PG. I mean, that's an albatross. Like, I think you just kind of got to ride this thing out.
For sure. You have to approach this window understanding that there's no getting off PG's contract. There's no getting off Embiid's contract. So if you can draft a guy you think gives you the best chance in that best case scenario where those guys are healthy and they do bounce back, well, that's VJ Edgecombe. And if that guy is also the best long-term option, like, come on. No question here. So I think actually the top 3 picks are all pretty clear. Now I think there's a lot more room for debate. I am going to take, for the Charlotte Hornets with the 4th pick, Maluach. Out of Duke, the young big man. He's my 4th prospect, and I think that the Hornets should basically be in best player available mode just because you have your guard who, like, should be your offensive engine in LaMelo, but obviously major availability questions with him. You've already locked him up with a big extension, so he's there for the foreseeable future. I think that Brandon Miller is going to be that scoring wing of the future for you when you treat him as such. Other than that, I don't think there's anybody else that you can really bank on as a long-term piece here. I don't like Solon. I didn't like that pick in the moment. I don't like the pick now. Mark Williams, I do think is talented, but I also think, like, he is as unavailable as they come. This guy's played in 106 games in 3 seasons and hasn't been the defensive player in these last couple years that you hoped he would be as a prospect and with some of what he showed as a rookie. So he's just not a guy who I am prioritizing over drafting the best player available. And this is actually what I think the Hornets did last year when they passed on Donovan Clingan to take so long, and I thought that was a mistake then. So I'm not going to make that same mistake twice. I'm going to take the guy who I think is the best player on the board, and that's Maluach. And just an incredible physical frame for this guy, 7'1" with a 7'7" wingspan. He's 250, going to be one of the better defensive bigs in basketball because it's not just the impressive rim protection and that major rim protection upside. It's also his versatility as a pick and roll defender, his really solid mobility, his active hands, his high motor, his defensive IQ and instincts. And then offensively, it's not just like this insanely efficient scoring off the roll where he's this massive, massive target around the rim and a really good screener. It's also the coordination, the really impressive touch that this guy's a 75% free throw shooter. And it's the upside that is born not just out of his physical gifts and some of these unique things that he does with his defensive versatility and the touch offensively. The guy's only been playing basketball for 4 years. So I just think he's got a great combination of floor with the big man stuff you know he's going to do defensively and as a rim finisher, and then the upside of what he can grow into. I like him the most here. He's my favorite guy on the board, and like I said, I don't think that the Hornets should be shying away from drafting the guy who I like most just because they have Mark Williams. And if I look at anybody else, Ace Bailey, a lot of questions regarding the things we were just talking about. Trey Johnson, I just don't like the idea of a LaMelo Trey Johnson defensive backcourt long term. Like, yeah, offensively it could be really cool, but I think that Maluach is the guy who most seamlessly can complement LaMelo and Brandon Miller if they do really work out long term and if they can both stay healthy and develop and refine some of the things that they need to. So I'd take him.
I mean, I think you said it earlier. I just think he's the best player on the board. And Maluach kind of seems like a polarizing prospect. I've seen a lot of drafts have him outside of the lottery.
Whoa, really?
Yeah, man. I don't know why he's so – I don't know why there's such a big gap between opinion on him, but I think his floor is exceptionally high, and I do think he has some offensive upside. The guy was 77% at the rim. He was 63%. Now take this. This is very small sample size, but 63% out of the mid-range. Like, the guy has legitimate touch on little post hooks and shots like that. I really like Maluach. Like you said, I think they made a mistake last year not taking Clingan. And if you're still holding on to Mark Williams stock, like, just let it go, man. Maluach is going to be better day one. And
ooh.
Dude,
I don't know if I can say that about Mark Williams because, like, he's a very talented basketball player and a hell of an athlete, and he was productive offensively. And, like,
you
see the rim finishing, you see some of even the passing flashes, the rebounding. But, yeah, he can't stay healthy. That's true.
It's like this has been the need, in my opinion, for the Charlotte Hornets for a few years now, and they should just do it. What I think they're going to do, I think they'd probably take Ace Bailey here, but I would take Maluach.
I mean, if you could have, and again, there would be some question marks with all these guys, but basically their view would be franchise guard, franchise wing, franchise big. It's a pretty good spot to be in. And I think that Maluach needs to bring that defensive seriousness and that aspect of being a defensive anchor and a really good pick and roll finisher who is consistently available, which Mark Williams is not, that I think complements LaMelo, that complements Brandon Miller too. Like, he just makes the most sense here to me. 5th pick, Logan, belongs to the Utah Jazz. Who are you taking as Danny Ainge?
Utah's a bit of a shit show in terms of, like, trying to figure out where they should go. I think the best player on the board, in my opinion, if I was starting a team from scratch, would be Jeremiah Fears, because I think he's got the biggest upside.
Ooh.
That being said, I don't think I would take Fears here because Collier seems like the guy for the future for Utah, or at least you want to give him more burn as a starter. And there's a lot of young players here, Carson. They're going to have to make some decisions on who they need to keep around, who they should move. Like, there's a lot of young guys here. But I'm going to take Trey Johnson. And the reason I'm going to take Trey is I think he's the best scorer on the board. And when I look at some guys who may be on their way out, maybe Larry Markkinen finally gets dealt for some future assets. Jordan Clarkson is slowly deteriorating. It's like, what's a need I think they can address? They can just go out and get a guy who gets buckets. There's a lot of different directions I could see Utah going here outside of center or forward. I don't think they need any extra centers or forwards. That's the one position I really wouldn't be looking at when I look at guys they've got on under contract. Markkanen, Collins, Hendricks, Walker Kessler. They just took Cody Williams last year. Like, I think they're going to take a 1 through 3. And Carson, I did a lot of thinking on what you were talking about last episode during our prospects, just about what you said about guys like Asenge and Carter Bryant, where you maybe necessarily don't want guys who are that offensively limited. You don't want to just get role players this early in the draft. And that's why I wouldn't take one of those guys. I think they could fit here, but I just think Trey Johnson's offensive floor is a lot higher, and he is a damn good scorer of the basketball. I also just think about the ideology and the identity of this team. Like, they are a perimeter-centric, space the floor, move the rock kind of team, and I really think Trey Johnson fits that to a T with his shooting touch. The guy is a 3-level scorer. He's got a little bit of a back-to-the-basket game. I really like Trey, and I think he works here. But to me, Utah has a lot of flexibility, man. I could see them going with a bunch of different guys with this pick.
I think that Trey Johnson is the pick. I think that he is the best player available, and that's really all that matters for Utah. Outside of, I would agree with you, it doesn't make sense for them to draft another big guy in the front court because right now Walker Kessler is their best asset, and he's their best young player. Outside of that, I think there's still a lot of uncertainty. I do really like Kyle Filipowski. I loved him as a prospect. I thought that he was really a steal at 32, and he had a really good rookie season.
Too.
I like Collier, but my point is now we're talking about guys who were end of the first, early second, and still have to show you a lot before you're like, yeah, that guy's a building block. With Collier, the athleticism, the playmaking, sure, but the shot has to come so far.
Dude, he shot nearly 70% at the rim, though.
Yeah, and he also shot nearly 70% from the line.
That was his knock.
24% from three.
I know, that was his knock as a prospect. I mean, he shot, I want to say he was I don't have the number off the top of my head. I want to say he was 20% as a mid-range shooter last season of college. That's his flaw. I'm not saying you should not take a prospect, but it's
okay, that's all I'm saying. I feel like you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm out on Isaiah Collier. I'm saying there's very few guys who you can be confidently all in on if you're Utah. It's kind of just Walker Kessler, and outside of that,
that's why I say it's a shit show, man. I mean, I just say I think you should give Collier another year. I wouldn't take a guy
but
at
if the
his
best
position.
player, that's crazy to me. If the best player, clear cut, were a point guard, I'm not passing up on that guy because I have Isaiah Collier. That's just not the case.
I'm not saying that at all.
Here.
Don't put words. I'm just saying, if Dylan Harper was available, I'd say take Dylan Harper. I'm just saying there's no guard that I'm convinced is going to be better than Collier, so give
Logan,
Collier
we're
another
not
year.
disagreeing about anything. There's nothing that we disagree about here. I don't know why you're pushing back on what I said.
I don't know why you're pushing back on what I said.
Because you pushed back on what I said. The only thing that I am saying is that I would be in best player available mode for Utah because none of these young prospects are guys who I am so committed to that I wouldn't draft another
Isaiah
player at their
Collier.
position.
Look at this guy,
See,
man. He hates Isaiah Collier.
This is why I can't talk basketball with you, Logan, and you make me sick. You just make me sick. Anyways, all this to say, I think that you absolutely made the right pick. I think that Trey Johnson is clearly the guy here. I think that he is really an exciting offensive talent. I think he's probably the best shooter in the class, all things considered. And in a Will Hardy system where they do such a nice job of using off-ball screens, weaponizing shooters away from the ball, I think that he could thrive there. And then he's a great shooter off the dribble, too. Really got a scorer's mentality, but I think he can be a solid playmaker, too. So I'm maybe a little bit lower on him than some because I do think that he's the number 5 prospect in this class, and some people would probably have him up more at number 3 or number 4. And some of that is I don't really think he's a particularly good rim pressure or rim finisher. He only shot 51% at the rim. That's a really low number, and definitely have some questions about shot selection, but maybe that just gets better in a different role and at the next level. And then defensively, I think that even though he's got decent measurables, I really didn't see anything that would make me optimistic about him being a decent defender. But I can see him being a great offensive player. And if I'm Utah, give me the dynamic guard. Because outside of that, Logan's going to flip his lid when I say this, but I don't really know what I have in Collier or Keontae George or even Cody Williams.
I'm more out on Keontae than I am Collier. I can at least see it with Isaiah. I don't like Keontae's shot selection and decision making. And I like Keontae as a prospect, too.
Yeah, you did like Keontae. If Utah gets Trey Johnson, I think he immediately becomes their best young asset and the building block they'd be most confident in. I think he even surpasses Walker Kessler there. But those would be two guys you feel really good about, and Utah
kind of
needs
spicy,
that right
man.
now.
I think Kessler's just rock solid.
Kessler is rock solid, but I think that Trey Johnson has the upside to be north of
like
a
him,
20-point per game scorer.
I do too. You like him even more than you liked Hendricks.
I like him more than I like Hendricks. I mean, I do like Taylor Hendricks. I really hope that he comes back and plays well once he gets healthy again. But there's just a different ceiling. You know, with Hendricks, it's just like solid 3-and-D wing stuff, basically. And then with Trey Johnson, we're talking about a guy who does have that dynamic offensive potential to be a real weapon. And especially if you pair him with a good point guard who can be that high-level playmaker and handle those primary ball handling responsibilities, I think that'd be a good spot for him. Utah has to figure out a lot still, but I think you just take the best guy. All right, it's my pick at number 6 for the Washington Wizards. I think I'm going to take Ace Bailey here. I'm conflicted because I just have very mixed feelings about Ace Bailey as a prospect. Like, what I've been saying about him for a long time is the vision, if everything goes right, is you're basically getting MPJ offensively. This guy who's got great size for a forward, is an elite shooting talent, who can do it off movement, who can do it against legitimate contests, who can be a really effective cutter and an above-the-rim finisher. He's a better above-the-rim athlete than MPJ for sure. But that's the offensive role. And then defensively, 6'8", 7-foot wingspan, really good rebounder, guy who can give you some defensive playmaking, could have some matchup versatility there, could be something of a secondary rim protector, and that would be an awesome basketball player. The concern is, this is also a guy who has a bad handle, who is a big-time negative assist-to-turnover ratio guy, just a bad passer, like insane scoring blindness, doesn't get to the rim, took a lot of tough twos and can struggle with pressure, can struggle with physicality. When you get up in his handle, you can just bait him into taking a bunch of really tough shots. So if that's who he thinks he's going to be, this like tough bucket primary option, I'm out on Ace Bailey, and it seems like that's who he thinks he's going to be. The question is, can you to some extent convince him that he does need to adapt, that he does need to understand that an NBA role requires different things of him than what his high school team did, and then what a college team for Rutgers that really wasn't very good needed from him, that he has to use his talent in different ways, because the talent absolutely justifies being picked here. Like, I just think he is the best talent on the board at this point. And the ceiling could be a top 3 player in this class, but the floor is significantly lower than that. The other two guys who I was really considering were Con Kneppel and Jeremiah Fears. I just think that the ceiling with Bailey is enough to convince me. I think envisioning him and what the shooting talent could be and what the defensive talent could be for this Wizards team on the wings, it's pretty compelling. But also, like, they need a lead guard. And Jeremiah Fears is the guy left on the board who has the potential to be that. And I'm higher on him than most. But also there are a lot of questions with him, with the three-point shot, with the rim finishing, with the turnovers. And defensively, I think he's going to get targeted. And then with Kneppel, like, yeah, the floor is really high offensively.
It's like you're getting a second Corey Kispert, though.
Well, but he's better than Corey Kispert.
I mean, I agree, but it's like you're getting that same archetype. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he doesn't have the potential that either Bailey or Fears do. So I guess, I don't know if I'm being optimistic about Bailey here. This just feels like kind of middle of the road outcome for him. The talent is enough to justify him being the 6th pick. And
I don't
then,
hate
you know, you could have a cool kind of wing tandem with him and Coulibaly if it works out. There's a lot of length. There's a lot of athleticism in that front court. He's just got to tap into it defensively, and he's got to get his head screwed on straight offensively, which I'm not super confident in, but the talent's good enough. I'll take him here.
I don't hate the pick. I mean, I just think it's going to be pretty funny watching the Wizards next year. Jordan Poole, Bub Carrington, Ace Bailey, Alex Sarr. Like, it's going to be
Shot
like
selection. And
I'm just trying to figure out what the hell the Wizards are trying to do with Chris Middleton and Marcus Smart on the roster. Like, those guys just stick out like sore thumbs. I got to think they ship them off to competitive teams if somebody's interested. Like, there's just no point in having those guys on the roster. Like, this is not a team that is remotely close to contention. Yeah. This feels like the right landing spot for Ace. It just the team is going to be so directionless, and it's just going to be funny, man. I think it can work, but I'm less than optimistic. And there's not a – that's the one thing that Middleton and Smart do provide with this team is at least a veteran presence and, like, guys to look up to.
Yeah.
So maybe you do need to keep those guys just to help bring the rookies along, man. The Wizards are just such a basketball abyss, man.
It's an interesting point because he's walking into a really unstructured environment where, like, yeah, Alex Sarr is putting up a bunch of jumpers and missing them, and Jordan Poole is insane.
He needs somebody to help, and a lot of guys on this Wizards team, to help bring them along and up to speed and, like, hey, this is what you need to do to last. And I'm not even necessarily saying that Ace Bailey's going to listen to anybody. I mean, it sounds like he doesn't, but I think I would love if he would go to a situation that had that sort of structure.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Middleton could be that guy. The problem is Middleton actually has made his career basically off being a tough bucket. He's just an exceptionally gifted jump shooter, but then also obviously he's done the other thing, right, with his playmaking. Marcus Smart, another guy who I don't think is really in a position to give any lectures on shot selection. So it concerns me, but it's just like, again, with anybody, with fears, I see a significant downside as well. There's not going to be a perfect fit that you're going to be like, oh, this is totally safe and it has the upside that we want. So I guess I'll just take the guy who is the best talent left in Ace Bailey. 7th pick belongs to the Pelicans, Logan. Who are you going to take?
I'm going to take Jeremiah Fears here. I think some people are going to be conflicted on this pick with the Pelicans, if they should get a win now guy, what they should do with it. I'm going to just keep it a stack. I don't believe in the Pelicans' competitive window whatsoever, at all. That being said, I could hear an argument for going with a few different players. If you wanted to go with a wing in this spot, like if you're going to deal away a Herb Jones or a Trey Murphy or something like that, okay, I would hear you out, and you can always get wing depth. I don't really care that McCollum or DeJounte Murray are on the roster at all. I would trade both of those guys. They are non-starters for me. McCollum just continues to get older. I've never liked DeJounte Murray that much. Zion Williamson can't stay healthy. It's like, I just don't look at this team as like, this is the piece that's going to do. We just get this guy and boom, the Pelicans are ready to go do it. I still think Zion Williamson is a special basketball player when he's fully healthy, but this team is just too far away from being competitive. So what do you do with the pick? Take the guy with the highest upside. I think the guy with the highest upside remaining is Jeremiah Fears, and that's my justification. I do think he has his flaws, like you mentioned earlier. I think he's got to get better at protecting the basketball. I think he's got to become more reliable as a floor spacer and as a shooter. That's a blanket statement you could make for any lead guard at this level. Like, you have to be a good shooter for the defense to fully respect you. Not that you're not going to be effective, but that's the best way to maximize your skill set. And, again, the defense is just going to let you shoot and play off if you can't. And he's got to protect the rock better. But I like the way Fears gets downhill. He is super young. The guy has got a baby face. Like, I cannot believe how young Fears looks. But I think he's got the highest upside remaining of any player. And that's the priority number one for me if I'm the Pelicans. I get that you could look at this and you could go, oh, they've got Zion, and they've got DeJounte, and they've got CJ, and they've got Herb, and they've got Trey. Cool. If this was 2K, maybe I'd go, yeah, man, let's go get a win now asset. It's not. These guys are not going to be competitive. This team isn't doing anything, so just take the guy with the highest upside, in my opinion.
Fears does have the highest upside remaining. I would agree with that. But then there also is a significant downside with him. And like you talk about those areas of improvement being a blanket statement, but it's like, I mean, for Jeremiah Fears, they're actually huge swing factors because he's a 28% three-point shooter. And that's what he was in high school, too. He shot 53% at the rim. So he gets there a shit ton, which I love, but he doesn't have great touch at the rim. He's got to be more efficient finishing there. And then he averages 3.5 turnovers a game, which is a lot. You understand the offensive load was crazy, but sometimes he did have some questionable decision making. So that paired with, like, this guy is going to be a to negative defender because he's 6'2.5" with a 6'5" wingspan, and he's got solid instincts, but there's some physical limitations, there's some motor stuff. You know that he's going to be focused on his offensive contributions first and probably is going to take his feet off the gas a little bit defensively. Like, you're always negotiating that risk reward with small guards who are offensively very gifted, but can they be efficient enough? Can they be refined enough? Can they be good enough as a decision maker to justify that they're probably going to struggle on the defensive end? And can they be respectable enough on the defensive end to still justify the offensive value? Like, it's hard in today's NBA. There are so many talented offensive guards who walk through the doors in each draft class, and you're always trying to figure out, are they going to be the guy where the good outweighs the bad? Or are they going to be another guy where you look around the league and it's like, yeah, I'm not sure there's a spot for you, because so many teams already have that talented offensive guard, and they're already worried even about some of these really good guys getting hunted defensively. So that's the risk reward. But I don't have a problem with this pick because I think Jeremiah Fears is really talented, and he is one of the youngest players in this draft, and he does live in the paint, and he is a really gifted passer, and he's a very efficient pick and roll creator. And I do think there are some positive indicators for his three-point shot just with his efficiency from the free throw line. 85% there. Shot decently well off the catch. Really just struggled much more as a pull-up shooter. And I love his ability to get to the line. I mean, 6 free throw attempts per game. I love his ability to create space for the pull-up jumper. I love the handle. There's so much that I really do like with him. Footwork in the lane. Very gifted offensive guard. And I think that, yeah, he justifies this. I mean, he's 8 on my big board, so I can't be mad at this. I don't know what the Pelicans should be prioritizing, and so that's where I basically would say best player available. Like, yeah, I'm not optimistic about this current window because as good as Zion is, no reason to believe that he'll stay healthy. I don't like DeJounte Murray at all. I wish that they could trade him. I don't think anybody's going to take on that contract. He's a negative asset. CJ, they have for one more year. They're just in such a weird place.
It is. Could you attach one of those guards? Damn, it's a lot of money. I was going to say with Trey, but then the money is just ridiculous.
Yeah, I think anybody who's taking on Trey is thinking like, yeah, we're trying to take that leap to contention, and they're not in a spot to absorb $60 million of cap, especially when more than 30 of it is going to a DeJounte Murray who.
And they gave up Dyson Daniels to get him, man. I mean, that's just got to hurt your soul.
Yeah, I did not like that trade in the moment. I mean, it just gets worse by the day. Just not an impactful winning basketball player, DeJounte Murray. 49% true shooting this season. That's unbelievable. That's almost impressive in the big 2025. So, yeah, I don't think that there's a good fit between the two guards that they have right now, CJ and DeJounte and Jeremiah Fears, but I don't even think if you take him, that's your concern. You're just thinking, okay, once we outlast this contract, who's the best guy for our future? And I can see the case that is Jeremiah Fears. I can also see the case for them wanting to take more of a win-now contributor, a guy who does fit in on the wings, who is going to be a high-floor contributor. Yeah, I could definitely see the case for that. You know, I'm not as high on Carter Bryant, so this would be a little bit too high. But I see the value of a guy in that archetype. I just don't know if there's somebody talented enough to justify going all the way at number 7. So, Fears is off the board. Now I'm picking for the Brooklyn Nets at number 8. I think that they're in best player available mode, man. Like, I think that the Nets are basically just starting from scratch here. We talk about the Jazz almost starting from scratch. I think that the Nets are in a very similar position, but they don't even have a Walker Kessler right now. Like, they have Cam Thomas, who's talented, but he very much falls into the mold of what I was talking about with the Jeremiah Fears range of outcomes, where it's like, yeah, this guy's a tough-ass bucket and he can produce as a scorer, but is he, as an all-around basketball player, a real positive for us? The jury is still out on that front. So I'm going to take Colin Kneppel. I think that he's the best player available at this point. I think that he is quite a safe pick. He's one of the 2 best shooters in this class, in my opinion. Really smart offensive player, knows how to weaponize his elite shooting threat. Phenomenal off the catch, really good off movement, can screen for other guards and be lethal there. And then I think it's not just the pure three-point shooting, really good playing off the catch, really good playing off ball in general, but nice footwork, as a driver. I think he can get into the lane, and he's a solid rim finisher. He's crafty, Logan. He is. He can drive coming off a screen with an advantage. He can knock down 2-point jumpers off the bounce. And then as like a tertiary or maybe secondary ball handler and creator, I think he's got really good passing feel, and he's a nice lob passer. He was an efficient pick and roll creator. So really good offensive player who I'm very confident in on that side of the ball, who I think fits anywhere. And the ceiling isn't super high, but you know he's going to be a positive for you. And then defensively, another guy where it's like, yeah, the range of outcomes is meh to negative. He's 6'5" with a 6'6" wingspan. He's got slow feet. He's not a good screen navigator. He can get blown by. He's going to compete. He's going to be smart positionally, but he's got very clear defensive limitations that'll make him a target. There's just nobody else who I think is more of a sure thing. There's nobody else whose talent I like more, whose two-way value outweighs Knepel's offensive value, which I do think is really significant. And yeah, it's the Brooklyn Nets. They should just be taking whoever's the best talent out there.
I don't hate that pick. I didn't write down Knepel for the Nets, but I do think he is a very safe pick. He's one of the highest floor guys in this class. The two guys that I wrote down for the Nets, I wrote down Jonas because if they really believe in his upside, he could be an interesting pick as like a long-term guard. You're talking about the concerns with Cam Thomas. I think some of those don't apply because Jonas is such a big guard. I just mean like being a real guy you can go at defensively more so. I mean, Cam's in a different class as a scorer, but like upside, I do see it a little bit with Jonas. He's not my favorite prospect. And then the other guy I wrote down was a guy you brought up on our last show. I really like Cedric Coward, and I don't know where he's going to go in this draft, but I really do like him as a prospect. And so I think he's probably going to go right outside the lottery or probably in the 20s, but I really do like his talent, and I wouldn't be mad at a team taking him top 10. But I really like Knepel. He's a very, like I said, he's a very safe high floor pick.
I like Coward a lot. I just think 8 is too high.
He's got, I don't know, man. I could see he only played 6 games this year. He tore his labrum in his shoulder. He had surgery for that. I could see Cedric Coward becoming a star. I really could.
Oh, a star. Interesting.
Yeah. And I feel the same way about this guy at number 9. I know there's a very, very large discrepancy between where I'm going to draft this guy and where I have seen him mocked.
I know who it's going to be.
I see him mocked in the late 20s.
Can I make a prediction?
Go ahead.
Is it going to be Walter Clayton
I'm
Jr.?
all about some Walter Clayton
Wow.
Jr., man. Hear me out. There may be better prospects on the board. I think he fits what the Raptors need. And so necessarily, if they want to trade back and get him, I wouldn't blame them. But Carson, I look up and down this roster. One, this is just like the island of misfit toys here in Toronto. I don't know what the hell they're going for. I don't really like the roster construction that they've made, but the Raptors have made their bed, and I think they have to lay in it. I don't think they're in a position to maneuver or deal some of these guys away. It's like I look up and down this roster, and I see a lot of positions and groups that are solidified. I think they're solidified on the wings. They've got Barnes, they've got Ingram, they've got RJ Barrett, they've got Agbaji, they've got Grady Dick, Jacoby Walter. Front court, I could hear an argument if they wanted to get a backup big for Jakob Poeltl, if that was a Sorber or somebody like that. I could hear an argument, maybe a Newell at this pick. So I'm looking at basically 2 position groups. Backup point guard, where I think they really desperately need another ball handler in this rotation, or a backup center who gives you a different look than Poeltl. Newell from Georgia, I think, would do that as like a small ball 5 kind of rim runner and rim protector. Sorber's more of a throwback kind of big, but he's a better defender, and I think I like him more as a prospect, so I wouldn't be mad at them for taking him. But I'm really high on Walter Clayton, and I think this team needs, again, 2 things. I think they need another bench ball handler, and I think they need floor spacing and shooting, and I think Clayton provides that. He's an older prospect. I understand why people aren't as high on him and are projecting him to go in the 20s, but I like him. I think Walter Clayton's got a little bit of star upside. I could see him becoming one. And again, it's kind of that thing you were talking about with Fears. I think he's more of a sure thing as like a rotational asset than Fears because of his skill set, but it's like, is he going to be good enough offensively to justify playing him on the court when he's probably going to be attacked defensively? The other guy I did heavily consider was Sorber, but I kind of want Sorber to go to another team more that I think really needs a 5-man. So maybe I put my GM hat on for 2 teams, and that's why I went with him. But I'm also really high on Walter Clayton Jr. I think I might be the highest in this class on him.
Oh, I thought you were just going to say I might be the highest. And I was going to say, yeah, I think you probably are.
Not right now. Maybe after the show.
Yeah, this is very high for Walter Clayton Jr. Now, I like him too. Like, you're talking about people having him mocked in the 20s. I would have him more in the late teens, just outside the lottery. This is just really high to go at number 9. And I do think if you're looking for guards, there are guys who I like more. Like, I do prefer a Yakuchonis just being so much younger. Yeah.
Well, can I ask you? I think the Raptors are a team that are trying to compete. You know, I mean, all the indicators to me seem that they – I'm not optimistic. I'm just saying that this is an older team with a lot of guys under contract. Like, Quickly is under contract through 29. RJ's through contract through 27. Ingram, through 27 as well. It's like, I don't know. I think this team is trying to compete over the next 3 years. So I understand. I think Yakuchonis maybe has the highest upside of any player remaining. But to me, I think this team wants to compete now.
Okay, if they want to take more of a sure thing, win now, older, polished point guard, then I would say that I significantly prefer Neat Clifford. I think that that is a guy who defensively is going to be much more impactful, who as a rebounder is going to be much more impactful. In fact, he even sort of falls into the mold of like the do-it-all wing who the Raptors are completely obsessed with, but he also is, an actual ball handler and really effective creator and really gifted passer with great size, who's a good shooter off the catch, really good downhill. Like, I like him a lot. I see what you're saying about liking the fit for Clayton. At that point, I would just trade back though if I'm going to take him. I don't think that you should take him this high. And with them trying to win now, it's not a significant enough motivator to keep me from drafting the guy who I think is the best player at the position that I'm looking for, especially if we're talking about, okay, they want a backup point guard right now. Is that the best use of the 9th pick? Or should you be trying to get the guy who is the better long-term asset?
I mean, that's your opinion. I do think Walter Clayton has more upside than that. I'm really high on him. So, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I see you with Walter Clayton, man. I think you get the Hannah Montana. I think you get the best of both worlds with this pick, man.
Let me lay out the concerns with Walter Clayton then, because I do think that he does some really great stuff. I think he's an elite shooter, great on pull-up jumpers, 1.07 points per possession on off the dribble jumpers. That's a really great number. I think he's crafty out of pick and roll. He's strong for being a small guard. He's a decent rim finisher, a little over 60% at the rim. That's a solid number for a guard, but just a really good shooter as a pull-up guy, off the catch, off movement. I'm just probably not seeing the offensive ceiling that you are, because I think the shooting is great. I think some of the craft is good, but he's really just a solid kind of basic playmaker and even can be inconsistent there as a decision maker and a passer. So the offensive floor is quite high because of, I think, the balance of on and off ball stuff. That being said, not a guy who I would ever be confident entrusting my offense with as my offensive engine. That's not there. The playmaking isn't there. The rim pressure and rim finishing isn't there to justify that kind of value. So I think, yeah, he probably will be an awesome backup point guard in this league. That's not what I'm going for with the 9th pick, because then, of course, the other thing with him that you're going to worry about is the defense. He's 6'2" with a 6'4" wingspan, doesn't have the physical tools, definitely some moments where you have some lapses in effort and focus from him as well. So I'm not as high. I would prefer going with the Yakuchonis here, who I think has the higher offensive ceiling with his great size, with his really impressive ability to get to the rim, really good finishing, really good foul drawing ability, the really high playmaking upside. I have a number of concerns about Yakuchonis too, but he's younger. The ceiling is considerably higher in my opinion. And so that's the guy who I would lean on if they're going to take a point guard. We'll disagree on this one. I know that you have all your stock in on Walter Clayton Jr. And Logan, I hope that it goes boom for you. Now, I am picking for the team that just got their own first back. The Phoenix Suns are picking 10th. This is an interesting spot.
Have you
Because I look
seen
at
their
the Phoenix Suns and I don't like anything.
I was going to say, have you seen their new roster, man? It's all 2s and 3s.
Oh, it's awesome because they're paying $145 million to Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Jalen Green. That is great cap allocation.
To tip my cap, this is who I would like to say I wanted to save Sorber for, man. I really think they could use a guy like him.
I definitely see that. God, it's just like so weird because I truly hate the Phoenix Suns as a basketball organization so much right now that it's like trying to figure out, who's the best fit almost feels stupid because it's like, what does it matter when their ceiling is winning 30 games? And you want to prioritize the long-term guy, but then you're also like, okay, I don't think they're going to trade Devin Booker. And if they don't trade Devin Booker, then,
I kind of think that's what's next for this team.
Well, I think should be.
I'm just saying, I think this is I think the Jalen Green domino is going to make the Devin Booker domino fall down.
Man, I mean, that's stupid in its own way. Like, yeah, they should trade Devin Booker. They shouldn't do it because they have Jalen Green, though. They should do it because they have upwards mobility.
I can see D-Book getting frustrated with just the team by next offseason and saying, get me out of here. Also, I know you already did the show on this. Can you believe that there are some people that think that the Rockets lost that trade?
Oh, because
it's
there
ridiculous.
Are people who are delusional about Jalen Green, Logan. That's really all it comes
down to.
Dude,
I saw somebody call Jalen Green a 23-year-old superstar, and I was baffled.
If you only pay attention to 1 out of every 8 games, I can see how you could come away with that conclusion. If you just ignore all the inefficiency, all the inconsistency as a pull-up shooter, as a rim pressure, as a rim finisher, as a playmaker, not being an impactful defender, if you just wipe all that stuff away and you look up and it's like, whoa, Jalen Green made 7 threes today and had 30 points, as he does once every 8 to 12 games, then yeah, get high off that all you want, brother.
Like, dude,
I'm good off it. I actually watched Jalen Green play basketball.
He was the leading scorer in the regular season, and he was rendered unplayable in the playoffs in meaningful minutes.
Yeah, and even as the leading scorer in the regular season, like, people already dramatically overstated the value of that. Like, clearly he was never remotely comparable to Şengün or Amen as just a winning impact player. So I'm off Jalen Green in general. To take him on as like seemingly one of the quote-unquote best assets you're getting for Kevin Durant, when I think he's a negative asset because of the contract, and you're taking him on when you have Devin Booker and Bradley Beal, don't like that at all for the Suns. So I really do struggle in terms of just like balancing what to prioritize. You know, I can't put myself in the mindset of the Phoenix Suns front office because what they're doing is just so bad year over year, move over move. So, like, maybe I could take the best player, and maybe that's Derek Queen at this point, and, like, I do think that they need a big. That being said, Derek Queen is not the kind of big who they need, you know, an offensively inclined, ground-bound, non-rim protector who's, like, probably more of a power forward. That's not it. And so I do really like the Sorber angle just from the perspective of, like, can we get ourselves an actual solid starting caliber center here who can defend at a pretty high level, who can be a decent finisher off the roll, get to the line some, be a solid connective passer. I'm not the highest on Sorber, but I think that's the pick. Because basically everybody else here who I'm looking at, if it's Nick Clifford, I really do like too. He's another guard, but he's an actual ball handler. I like him a little bit more as a talent than Sorber. I think that he's got real offensive juice. 91st percentile pick and roll creator, 95th percentile ISO creator, great size, on and off ball value, really good passer, really good finisher, nice body control, rebounding the ball at a really high level for a wing, solid defensive player. I think the need is a little bit greater for a Sorber. I think the talent is better for Nick Clifford. But is there room for him? Because realistically, they're just going to move Book to point guard. That's going to be their adjustment here. Can I phone a friend? What do you think? You would go with Sorber here?
Sorber is the guy that I wrote down for Phoenix. I think he makes the most sense. I really like Sorber as a prospect. He's 6'9" with a 7'6" wingspan. And I want to say he's going to be I think he's going to be the 8th heaviest player in the league when he
love
enters.
The big boys, Logan.
He's 263 pounds, man, and I like him as an athlete. This guy's strong. He's coordinated. He plays so physically and so imposing. And when I think about the needs for the Suns, not just positionally, I think they need a nasty SOB. And you at least have some defensive pluses. You would have Ryan Dunn. You would have Sorber out there. And he's all about doing that dirty work. He's going to set hard screens. He's going to roll hard. I love the way the hand fighting you see from Sorber down on the inside, like all the little physical stuff. And I think he's a talented post scorer. I don't think he's like Derek Queen or anything like that, but he's got nice footwork, pump fakes, counters, good touch. He's a good finisher, and he bangs. That's what I like about Sorber the most, man. He is tough, and I think Phoenix needs some of that physicality. And like you mentioned, I think he's a bit of a connective five-man. He's not an elite passer or playmaker or anything like that, but he's got some playmaking chops, and he's a good rim protector. The only concern that I have really about Sorber is just his viability as any kind of floor spacer. But for the Suns, it's like Beal's going to jack up a lot of perimeter shots. Book's going to jack up a lot of perimeter shots. Jalen Green's going to do the same. So it's like that's not as big of a concern to me. So I am high on Sorber just in general. I think him and Queen are really close to me as prospects, but just because of some of Queen's deficiencies defensively, I don't have those concerns about Sorber. I think he's going to be a plus. So, yeah, I think it's the most valuable winning archetype that Phoenix could go and get, and I think Sorber's the guy.
Yeah, I mean, I do prefer Neat Clifford as a prospect. I do prefer Cedric Coward as a prospect, and I think those guys would still fit and be positive contributors, but the big man situation is so dire. It's so dire for Phoenix that I think this probably does make sense. And like, I have Sorber 14 on my big board, so I'm not low on him. I don't think that he is the 10th best prospect in a vacuum, probably just because I'm not super high on a couple of the swing factors for him. Maybe like, I do think that he's a really good post defender. I think he's a really good drop big, just not as versatile maybe as I would like for a defensive first prospect in terms of his ability to defend on the perimeter. And then the floor spacing is a swing factor for him potentially, because like, got decent touch from the line, 72%, and he's willing to take jumpers, but he was 9 of 50 on all jump shots this year, and I don't like the mechanics from deep, so I'm just not confident in that.
Yeah, he was 16.2% on 1.5 threes a game, and then he was 38% from mid-range this year.
Yeah, so that's not encouraging. But the fit here makes enough sense, because if there's one thing that the Suns desperately need, it's a big man, and particularly a defensive big man. I wish he was a little more efficient as a finisher off the roll this year, but the fit makes a lot of sense. So yeah, okay, I'll take Sorber for the Suns at 10.
So I'm up with Portland with the 11th pick, and the guy that I had slotted in here for Portland was Knuppel. I was hoping that he was still going to be available here for Portland, just because I think they really need some reliable floor spacing, some shooting. You know, this is a really good defense last year, and there's not a ton of needs, I really think, for this team, just when I look like positionally. They've got a lot of good players at all three levels, at guard, forward, and the big spot. I think I'm between two wings. I'm between three players, Carson. You tell me what you think. I like Cedric Coward here. I think he's probably my top prospect remaining. I like Yakachonis as like a future guard potential, just to have like waiting in the wings behind Scoot and Ant as like a contingency plan. And then I also like Colin Murray-Boyles as like another stud defensive wing that you could just slot in here and could wreak havoc. I'm not sure that's the biggest need for this team. I really think they need shooting and skill on the wings.
Mm-hmm.
Who do you think? I think I'm leaning Cedric Coward, but I'm not really sold on any of these guys for Portland.
I like Cedric Coward. I mean, what's tricky for Portland is, like you said, they have so much young talent, and like it really does go across position groups. Obviously, they don't need to draft another center. They're good there. They already have some really good, talented wings with Toumani Camara, with Denny Avdia, with Shaedon Sharpe. But you can kind of never have too many wings. And the Yakachonis case is interesting too, Because, yeah, they have two guards who they've invested a good bit in both Scoot and Ant Simons, but I don't think you're sold on either of those guys necessarily as the guard of the future. So maybe are you drafting for upside there? It would come down to those two for me. It would either be Yakuchonis or Cedric Coward, kind of depending on whichever need you think is a little more valuable. I think that Coward is the safer pick. I think that Yakuchonis is the higher upside pick. I won't call you a coward if you take Coward, even though it is the safer pick. And I'm not quite as high on Colin Murray-Boyles as a prospect as these guys. I like him, but not quite this much.
Yeah, this was more just because Portland and that defensive identity, but I don't think they need another guy in that mold. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take Yakuchonis here, man.
I like it.
Again, I like Coward more as a prospect, but I think Yakuchonis makes more sense here with my concerns about Scoot long-term. And I don't normally like doing this, like taking a safety net or like that kind of player. But I think you could send Yakuchonis down to the G League and let him get some work down there, grow his game, get a little better, and then when the time is right, call him up. So I like Howard more, but I think Yakuchonis makes a little more sense for what Portland's got going on right now. So I'm going to take him.
I like it. I think it's a good pick. Now, I'm looking at the Chicago Bulls, and I'm realizing at 12, I did really like Sorber to them. That would have been good because they're another team who you look at and you're just like, yeah, you need a defensive big badly. Regardless, I think you have to look to the front court for them. Man, I don't want to see Neat Clifford slide, Logan. I love Neat Clifford. I don't want him sliding out of this lottery. I think that Cedric Coward makes a lot of sense here, or Carter Bryant, or maybe Noah Senge. I just kind of prefer both Coward and Bryant as prospects. I'll take Cedric Coward here. Why not? I love the guy. I think that you are getting really a high floor player. I mean, I have so few questions about Cedric Coward, and I understand why he hasn't been the highest on draft boards, right? Because he's almost 22, and he hasn't played a ton of high-level competition. This guy was at Eastern Washington, and then he played 6 games for Washington State, but he shot 70% on two-pointers, 40% on three-pointers. I think he's an elite three-point shooter, and I think he's a really good jump shooter overall. He's got a really good mid-range pull-up game, attacking closeouts. He's got very fluid shooting mechanics, so the shooting is very valuable. I think he's really good at weaponizing that shooting threat into two-point scoring. I think he's a very high-feel, high-IQ player who takes what the defense gives him, and he's got really good passing vision, really good feel, just a nice connective passer who I can see fitting in to basically any situation. And then defensively, this guy's 6'6" with a 7'2" wingspan. So that's elite size and length for a wing, and he's very agile, very fluid, good screen navigator, really good screen navigator. In that length, obviously, like you're just going to be able to make some outlier recovery plays, getting in passing lanes when you have a 7'2" wingspan, and he defends hard. So I'm just so confident in the floor. Like, truly, this is one of my guys in this draft. This is a guy who I think is a quality
100p.
starting wing in this league, and I'm going to take him here because the Bulls need that. The Bulls need a quality starting two-way wing. Obviously, they have their backcourt that they feel good about. I'm not a big Giddey guy, but you have Giddey and Kobe White, and so now I think you're looking for guys who can bring you value in the front court, and I think that Cedric Coward is a really nice pick to do that.
Yeah, I've got Coward at, I think, number 7 on my big board. I'm high on Cedric. And a couple of things. One, I think that I really like the fact that I know some people are going to be critical that he didn't play against super high-level competition. It wasn't D1 those first couple of years. That kind of endears Coward to me a little bit. This is a guy who didn't, and there's a lot of guys in this class, too, that started somewhere else, transferred out. That he didn't give up. He didn't take no. Like he said, I'm going to keep working and I'm going to get better. And you were talking about those numbers. While it's not against the highest level competition, we do have a 3-year sample size that we can look at. 70% at the rim over 3 years, 55% in the mid-range, 39% from deep, and 83% from the free throw line. The guy is a great playmaker and rebounder for his size. He is really fluid and agile for a guy his size, and I just like a lot about Cedric's game. So if Chicago were able to get him at 12, I think it is probably one of the steals of the draft for me. I really like Cedric as a prospect.
You are high on the old guys, Logan. You're not worried about age. You're saying, I want the sure things.
I want ballers. If you're a baller, I don't care about the age, man. I think if you can play ball, I don't think your age should factor in that much.
He can play ball. I think the floor is really high, and like you're reading off those efficiency numbers, bro. It literally doesn't matter the competition. When you're playing D1 college basketball,
right.
that sort of efficiency is insane. Obviously, it's a little bit easier to achieve at Eastern Washington, but there's not a lot of guys who can create that shot quality and have that sort of shot selection to be that efficient.
And like you were saying, too, I just really like his versatility in all the little different things that he can do. He's got good vision. He's got a good handle for his size. He is a good rebounder and defender. Like, he just checks so many boxes for me, and I do think he's a sure thing. He's, like you said, I think he's one of the stamp nerd sesh guys in this class, man. I like Coward a lot.
All right, now the Atlanta Hawks are picking at 13. Who do you like for them?
So the guy that I wrote down for Atlanta is still on the board.
Okay.
I'm trying to think if it's the exact right pick. Yeah. I think I'm going to take Asa Newell here. Out of Georgia. The thing about it is I just don't know exactly what else Atlanta can go and get. The reason I was going to go with Newell is I think he slots in as a small ball 5. Clint Capella's contract is up. I think about guys that could fit alongside Trae Young. Newell's one of those guys to me where he's going to be fast. He's going to fly up the court if you're running him at the 4 or the 5. I would like that as the identity for Atlanta with guys like Jalen Johnson and Onyeka Okongwu and Dyson Daniels, like tall, fluid athletes that can get up and down the floor. I think he'd be a good pick-and-roll partner with Trae. I think he's got some upside as well with working on the post and working on the block. My only thing is I'm thinking about Colin Murray Boyles just as like getting a sure thing defender in here on the wings.
What about Carter Bryant? What about your boy Carter Bryant? He hasn't gone.
I did think about Carter Bryant too. You know what?
I like him for Atlanta.
I like that a lot too, Carson. Bryant's higher on my big board than Newell. I was more going for the positional need because Capella was up, but I like Bryant more as a prospect. Newell's a little bit lower on my board. It's not a big difference. Newell's 16, Bryant's 12 for me now. I'll do that. I like that. It's a good shout. So I guess actually I'd probably land between either Bryant or Asenge, but I do prefer Bryant because of his athleticism and the shot. So Atlanta's just so weird, man. You know, it's like they always get young guys that I like, and the needle just hasn't progressed to like Atlanta being a consistent playoff team yet. But I do like Bryant, so I think he's a good pick here. Damn, man, they just got athletes on athletes next to Trae.
I mean, I'll say it again, man. You can really never have too many two-way wings. And when you put together a group where you have a Carter Bryant, who I'm not the highest on, but I like him a lot here as a pick at 13. I think it's the best pick on the board. And then you have a do-it-all forward like Jalen Johnson. You have a guy like Reece Shea, who we've seen the flashes of with the shooting and the feel offensively and some of the defensive tools. And then, yeah, I mean, Onyeka as a full-time starter, I think it's going to be interesting to see. I've always been a believer in his. We'll see if he can really rebound at the necessary level and protect the rim at the necessary level, but I think that he's a really solid all-around player. And then obviously, you know, you have your great offensive engine. I didn't mention Dyson Daniels when I'm talking about these lengthy, do-it-all kind of wing types. So I like this a lot. And I think that Atlanta's going to be really good next year. I might pick him to win 50 games next year in an East that is a little weaker, a little watered down with obviously the Hallie injury and the Tatum injury, big-time bummer, the Dame injury, like they're one of those teams that I think can seize an opportunity there. And after Cleveland, who I think is a clear favorite now, and then New York and Orlando, I think Atlanta's probably going to be that next team. I mean, Detroit obviously also has to be in that conversation. We'll see what they do, but Jalen Johnson getting hurt just really derailed this season for Atlanta. He was playing at like a fringe all-star level, though, before he got hurt, and I'm always a big believer of his. So I like this a lot. Now we're back around to the San Antonio Spurs. So I already took Dylan Harper, nailed that one. This is an interesting spot.
Carson, please, man. Please.
Who do you want me to take? You can tell me. I'll accept any sort of advising.
I purposely did not draft this guy anywhere else because I think it is the best fit in the best situation that he could go to with his limitations.
Is it Derek Queen?
I would love to see Derek Queen go to San Antonio. I think,
yeah,
the concerns with Queen are his defensive limitations as a 5-man and his legitimate floor spacing. You put him alongside a guy like Wemby, you can clean a lot of that up, and he's so damn skilled.
I agree with a lot of what you just said, and I did have Queen down as one of my names. The other two guys were Cedric Howard and Carter Bryant, both of whom have gone now. I would like the Spurs to get another really good wing because right now so much of their talent is concentrated in the backcourt. And then they have Vassell, who I like offensively. Keldon Johnson, to me, though, is nothing. He doesn't matter for them. Harrison Barnes, obviously, long-term doesn't matter for them. So, I want them to have that formidable wing group alongside Dylan Harper long-term, and then Wemby. That's how I feel like they max out their ceiling. But I think a lot of the best guys in that mold have gone. But then you do have Noah Asenge, who's quite interesting in that mold. I think you see the ceiling with him just because of his athleticism, his cutting and transition potential, his frame, and defensively, I think he'll be one of the better guys in this class. Really good length and versatility, and can be a decent secondary rim protector for you. And then offensively, he's got some decent connective passing and feel too, but really raw offensively. Really raw. Doesn't have a pull-up game as a jump shooter. Not an effective driver off the bounce. Not a crafty, shifty driver whatsoever. And a 25% three-point shooter. So he's probably the next best wing on the board, and I just don't think I like him enough to take him here. Queen is interesting because, I think the talent is really good. You know what? I'm going to take him. Get Jeremy Sohan the hell out of here. Not a big fan of his. I mean, he does some good stuff out there. But it's interesting trying to put, an actual sort of power forward type alongside Wemby. I don't know if I love that. I think I would kind of like to max out the offensive skill and spacing around him. That being said, you talk about the defensive side. I think Wemby is a really, really nice guy to pair alongside Queen because he is going to do so much to be an elite defensive anchor. And maybe you can hide Queen a little bit more at the 4 defensively, but he'll still be a really impactful rebounder. And then offensively, guy's just really talented. There's some stuff that you question, obviously, the jump shot. We've seen flashes, but he was 35% on 2-point jumpers, 19% on 3-point jumpers. So that obviously has to get better. But the inside scoring, the combination of skill and touch and agility and power and body control at 6'10" and thick, the ability to get to the line, that's really impressive. And then he's also got really good feel and vision as a passer, which I think could be a really fun aspect of him playing with Wemby in the front court because they're both gifted in that way. And then, listen, I always want Wemby to get more easy offense around the rim, and hopefully Dylan Harper can create some more of that for him. But we also know that Wemby is going to take 10 threes a game, and maybe that does allow for Queen to operate a little bit more out of that mid-high post area and do a little bit more work in the paint.
I was thinking maybe, the big knock with Queen on tape for me was just watching him get abused by other college centers on the interior defensively. So it's I think that'd be a worthwhile trade-off where you can kind of get the best of both worlds on offense and defense. You've got Wemby inside on defense, and then you've got Queen on inside on offense, and kind of roll with that. It's definitely not the cleanest fit, and I think there are, like you mentioned, other areas where they could get better, but I don't know. And this also is just, I feel like the reason I wanted him to go here is I feel like this is the best landing spot for Queen. I thought Brooklyn is kind of interesting just because they have Claxton and they don't really have any other guys to bank on. You just really need that high-end defensive center, but I don't know. I think he could be viable next to Wemby.
The guy who is really holding me up here is Neek Clifford. I love Neek Clifford. He's one of my guys. He and Cedric Howard are my guys who I feel like are not consensus lottery talents, but I definitely want to see go in the lottery. And he does so much. I've talked about it, but off ball as a shooter, his rebounding being great for his position, being a solid defensive player. I think he can do damage on and off ball, but I do think, like, he is a ball handler. He is a guy who is kind of another downhill guard. Like, I think that he's certainly a much more proven jump shooter than a Castle or a Harper, no question. But he is a big 6'6" guard who wants to get into the paint a good bit and wants to have the ball in his hands a good bit. And even though I love his all-around skill set, I just don't know if there's room for a guy like that in San Antonio right now.
Send him to OKC with the 15th
You know what?
pick.
Fuck it. Great point, Logan. Add that to the graphic. This isn't a lottery mock. This is a top 15. This is a first half of the first round mock because we have to talk about the Thunder. And I'm taking Nick Clifford just because he's too good. And they can use another ball handler, especially another ball handler who can shoot, who can defend relatively well. Thank you, Logan. You've made me feel okay about myself now. I love that.
We had to get him in there.
I mean, I like the guy too much. But yeah, I think that Queen and San Antonio would be really interesting. And like the talent is good. The fit is going to be kind of wonky anywhere. But I think that's one of the better fits that you could draw up for him. So there you go. A lottery mock +1. A little bonus for the Nick Clifford enthusiasts out there. Also, you just talk about a guy who, yeah, super do it all, but ready to contribute now. The guy's 23 and a half years old. So I think that that's very nice for a Thunder team that is coming off a title. If they do stand at the 15 pick in draft, I can't think of a better guy who they could land with that pick. Any final thoughts, Logan, before we wrap this thing up?
I just think it takes a little bit of pressure off of Topic, too. If he's not, immediately ready to go at the start of the season or something, you get yourself a little insurance with that pick.
More ball handling. I mean, yeah, I think that he is probably kind of like Sam Presti's dream, honestly.
You read my mind.
He's in that mold, and he's in that mold that I love. So I would really, really like to see that. I feel good about this mock, Logan. When you do a mock, it's hard because, like, you always want all your guys to land in spots that you're happy with. You're drafting for each team's best interest, but you want the fits to all work out. And I think that pretty much happened here. You're high on Walter Clayton. Him going 9 is high. I don't think that's going to happen on draft day. But this is the Logan Camden world, and we're all just living in it.
I'm willing to crash and burn, man. I liked Diet Devin Booker, Johnny Davis, too, man. That one did not work out for me. I'll keep it a buck. But
I mean, everybody's going to swing and miss with the draft, man. It's impossible not to.
But I do love me some Walter Clayton Jr. I think he'll probably go late 20s. Hey, Sacramento Kings, maybe y'all want to make a call.
I don't know if he'll get to the late 20s. I think that his offensive floor is going to be high enough where people are like, yeah, we'll take him in the late teens. I think that that'll happen. I think that, like, there's value in that, man. There's value in just knowing that, like, this guy's going to be able to produce for you at some level, even if he is 22. And I think that that'll drive him upwards a little bit. And we'll see him go before 20 is going to be my guess. Ladies and gentlemen, the draft is coming in hot in 2 days. We will be live for the draft, reacting to every pick as it happens in real time for the first round. That's going to be a long, fun night, and we are very much looking forward to enjoying it all with you. We also are going to have a show tomorrow. No spoilers, but we're going to have a guest, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what we just saw from the new NBA champion Oklahoma City Thunder, and maybe even talk a little Kevin Durant, maybe even look a little bit forward to next year, maybe even do some way too early predictions for who we will be seeing in the 2026 NBA Finals. So stay locked in for all that. You will see it all across our YouTube channel, along with, of course, all of our full-length episodes and our video essays and video breakdowns that we do. And you can listen to all of our full episodes across all audio platforms. And then, of course, you can follow us across social, TikTok and Instagram at NerdSesh, Twitter at Nerd_Sesh. And you can see all of our fun little trivia games, all of our short-form content there. You can see all of our takes that we clip for social. You can see me getting really mad and red in the face about Stephen A. Smith and his bullshit if you missed that in real time. It's all there. And you can join our Discord if you want. That is linked at the link tree that is across our social media bios, and you can just be part of our community there and chat with the gang about anything and everything. So with that, as always, I greatly appreciate you guys. Yeah, you didn't see that one coming. You thought I was just going to say my name. Nope. I wanted to say that I appreciate you guys because I was just thinking these playoffs wrapped up. Most fun I've ever had covering basketball this season, Logan. Truly, what a joy it was. What a great season. And super grateful to all you guys who are new to the show, who just started listening recently, and, of course, all you guys who have been around for a long time. But this was a really, really fun postseason. And In some ways, I'm bummed that the NBA season is over. Wish it could have gone on forever, but also definitely ready to get into the offseason. So, with that, I've been Carson Brabber.
Couldn't make it happen without you guys. Love you. Carson, we're going to be like a phoenix rising when the NBA is back, though. And
We
guess
died?
what, though? You know what's crazy?
What?
The Phoenix traditionally has to go down to come back up.
We
We're
stay
not
up.
stopping pumping content out, man.
We stay up. We're not a
we're not
Phoenix.
going anywhere.
We're Boba Fett with a jetpack.
Type.
Well, you're Boba. I'm Django. I always liked Django more when I was a kid because I like
Django
blue.
swaggier, for sure. It's a good pick. It's a good pick.
Up,
Go
up,
with that.
up, up, up. All right.
Love you guys. I've been Logan Camden.
And this was Nerd Sesh.